Welcome to the Humanity Mosaic podcast, exploring authenticity and connection with Dr. E. Thank you for joining us today as we explore issues that affect our relationships in today's world. And now welcome to today's episode with Dr. E.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're joining us today because you're going to have an opportunity to hear from the fantastic, fabulous Dr. Nandi Shareef. Let me tell you a little bit about Nandi. She's the driving force behind the Truth, Then Dare, which is a global movement which inspires women to move from being good to actually being great. She encourages women all across the globe to actually do the work that's required to show up as their authentic selves. She is an award-winning executive coach and founder of the Shareef Group, where she's known for her disruptive, transformational approach to leadership and executive development. With over 15 years of experience, Nandi has worked with particularly not just executives, but really focusing on phenomenal women and helping them to land in their true selves and to be able to show up in spaces and places that just make us all proud. And Nandi has recently celebrated a birthday, so give her a warm welcome as I invite her to the stage, Dr. Nandi Shareef.
Dr. E, it's so good to see you. I'm excited to be on the Humanity Mosaic podcast and even more excited to be talking to you. Every time we get together, we have such powerful, rich, transformational conversations. So I can't wait to see where we go.
I know. We had a little try to get together, do it before, and we didn't do it, but we had such an amazing conversation that I wish that we had done it because you're right. We never know exactly where it's going to go, but it always ends up being so rich and so powerful. Absolutely. But Nandi, I want to jump right in and first of all, just tell you how much I applaud and appreciate the work that you're doing, particularly the work that you're doing with women. I have a lot of strong feelings about empowering women and where we go from here. And I would like for you to speak to everyone a little bit about Truth and Dare. Mm-hmm. How did that get started and where are you with it now and where is it going in the future?
Yeah, thank you for that, Dr. E. You know, so much of my life has been about following where I feel passionate and feel excited and really allowing myself and giving myself permission to explore my creativity. And I oftentimes have done that throughout my career on the side. But what I noticed maybe about 5 or 6 years ago now is that wasn't enough, that if it really was my life, if each of us as human beings are gifted one life and we are tasked to do with it the best that we possibly can do, really had to ask myself, am I doing enough? And while my answer was, I'm not sure, life rose up to meet me and life said to me, well, Nandi, actually, if you look at what you have, it's good, but it's not great. And the reason why it's good is because you are living the life that's expected of you. You're living a life that people told you to live. If you do these things, if you get these degrees, work these jobs, check these boxes, you'll feel fulfilled. And I don't know if this resonates with any of your listeners, Dr. E, but every single time I got to a new milestone, I would take it in and then I would immediately lose it. It would be a moment. I wouldn't be able to really digest it and hold on to it. Instead, I would be worried about what's next. And so I learned from that experience that achievement wasn't enough. Alignment and attunement was what I was actually searching for and craving. And so I went into my prayer closet. I went and had my moment with God, universe, source, whatever you might call it, your listeners might call it, and really just asked for clarity. Asked for the opportunity to live fully expressed and fully out loud. And that if I had the opportunity to truly do that, that I would share it with other people. And so I went through what I've called in my own podcast, the dark night of the soul. But it was an excruciating excavation of removing everything that was not like me, everything that I had been taught to become. And instead, what it left me with was who I truly was at my core. And I said, okay, it's a process and it works. It's time to actually bring it to other women. So that's where Truth Then Dare comes from. When we talk about truth, first we have the opportunity as women to truly ask ourselves, what's real here, right? I see everything that's around me. I see all of my roles, everything that's a part of my life. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm an executive, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a caretaker, I'm all of these things. But if I were none of those titles, who would I be? Getting to the truth of who I am. And then we oftentimes skip over the then. The then is very intentional in Truth Then Dare.
Mm-hmm.
Because the then is that there's an in the meantime moment that most of us will have after we make the decision to live in our truth. We don't automatically get there. There's a moment where things are challenging, they're difficult. There's a lot that's rising up against us saying, is this what you really want to do? Is this the place that you want to put yourself in? Do you really want to release and let go of everything that you've had to have a life that you're only dreaming about? And then the last part is there. You actually have to heed the call as a woman. You have to say, yeah, I'm worth that. It's important. I matter. I'm valued. I'm not going to leave this life full. I'm going to leave empty. And as a result, I'm going to dare to live in my truth. So where we are right now is we're in the thick of it, Dr. E. It's the first season of our podcast, the Truth Then Dare podcast. And we have women all around the globe who are tuning in and who are also choosing into coaching programs with me, as well as retreats where we are learning how to incubate safe space for ourselves so that we can feel our truth and live into our courage. And we're also doing that work with one another collectively in community.
I love this. I absolutely love this because everything, as you know, as one of your teachers and mentors, has always been about coming home to your authentic self. And what I am watching is you going out into the world courageously, first attending to your own business, going through the process yourself. Because as I always say, you cannot lead people on a journey that you have not been on. And I see how you have just sort of taken all the time that you have needed to go inward and to, as you said, and I love this, go into your prayer closet and just sort of be. Just be and listen to the voice that will come when you take the time to get still and let your 3 centers of intelligence, be completely open to whatever the answer happens to be. What's fascinating about listening to you, Nandi, you don't know this, but in November of last year, it was 27 years since I started my own business. And 27 years ago, for a woman to just say, no to corporate, no to public sector, no to private sector, yes to me sector. But it was that same process, Nandi. I went into my prayer closet and I said, why am I here? How can I serve? What do I say and to who? And the download came. And that was where Trinity Transition Consultants was formed. So we know that this works, and for all of our listeners, if you haven't tried going into your prayer closet or your meditation space or whatever it is, get still, get free, clear out all the stuff that does not help you be who you are authentically intended to be, and ask for the message, the guide, the direction, and it will come. So, Nandi, when did this start for you?
There are so many different answers to that question.
Choose one.
What I will say is this real moment of knowing I needed to do something different. I was working in corporate America, in tech industry, had an incredible, so it looked like on paper, career. I was in the perfect relationship with a beautiful man, so it looked like on paper. I'll continue to say things, and behind it, I'll say on paper.
Yeah.
Everything looked, right? Everything looked perfect. And I was with my girlfriends, and we got together one weekend. They were my coworkers as well, and we sat up at the top of the Claremont Hotel in Berkeley, California. And from the patio area, you can look off and see the San Francisco skyline. And so we're there, we're drinking water, we're catching up, we're laughing, looking into the skyline. They're all telling me what's going on in their lives. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm so happy for you. And then they turn to me and say, Nandi, what's going on? And I say, oh, everything is fine. Everything's fine. My partner's fine. Work is fine. I'm in, an apartment that I enjoy, living here in the Bay Area. Everything's fine. Why was it fine? Why was it fine? That's where it started. And I talk about this a little bit on my podcast, where it's almost like when you have a little bit of a thread that's coming out of your sweater or your shirt. You're like, what is this? And you start to pull, and all of a sudden things start to unravel. Oh, that is exactly what happened. Because I went home that day and I asked myself, why would that be the word that I would use? If everything was fantastic and according to plan and good on paper, why wasn't my response at least good? Why was it fine? There was internal dissonance that I had not yet addressed. I hadn't even looked at because I was so focused on achievement. I didn't realize the misalignment. So that's where it started, Dr. E.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It really does. And, people don't normally challenge that. Fine is good enough. It's like I teach about tolerance being just a first step. It's not acceptance. It's not inclusion. It's not appreciation. So when you realize that things were fine, that was sort of a meh response, really. It really was. And from that place, you decided to go deeper. Okay. So we have the impetus of what created the desire to go deeper, but I'm curious about what the process looked like at that point. Yeah, because see, I've had that moment. I've had that moment, and I've had the cry ugly tears that go right along with that moment. And, just the feeling of being really stretched beyond my comfort zone.
That's right.
So give us a little more detail. I mean, I want to go in that closet with you now.
Absolutely. It was such a messy middle.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why I call it a dark night of the soul, because what I did was, in acknowledging this thread and sort of pulling at it and watching it unravel, I gave life permission to expose me to myself. And in order to be exposed to myself, everything that was not of me and like me had to leave. So what left? My partner, my friends, and my job. All within a 6-month period, Dr. E.
Wow.
6-month period. They were all released from my life, or lost, whatever you want to call them. At the time, let me share this with your listeners, especially the women. At the time, it felt like loss.
Yeah.
Years later, I know it was gain. And so for many of us, as we go through this process for ourselves, as we're willing to look at ourselves and get to our truth, we will begin to experience what looks like losses, things that have always been a part of our lives or have been around for a really long time, or things that we know ourselves to be. People might even look at you like you're crazy and say, what is going on? You must be having a whatever life, quarter life, midlife, end of life crisis. And that's not actually it. What looks like falling apart is actually falling together.
Together. Correct.
And so I just followed it because I was so much more curious about what was on the other side of the loss than I was about the loss. And if we can get ourselves aligned with what's in front of us is greater than what's behind us, we have the rest of our lives to look forward to, Dr. B. And so I did, and I didn't just pray. I meditated, I chanted. You know how I am, so I'm included in everything. I relied on all resources. I went to all different types of practitioners. I journaled myself. I looked inside of myself. I tapped. I did. I mean, just absolutely every single tool that I have learned as a practitioner and as somebody who has been a student of this work for so long, both coaching work and also, psychotherapy and all those things. And when things started to become real, uncovered, when I could actually see, all I needed was a little bit of light, Dr. E. And
Yeah.
I was willing to go through the heartache. I was willing to go through the pain. I was willing to go through the dissolution of all of those relationships. I was willing to take the layoff and say, okay, I've been working toward full-time entrepreneurship on the side for a really long time. I'm not going to fight this moment, even though I don't feel ready. I'm going to call it ready. And so, in doing that and accepting what was coming and accepting what I had instead of fighting against what opened up was the possibility of courage, of daring, of risking, of living from a place of truth, and finally, now a place of alignment.
You know what is so beautiful about what you're sharing, Nandi, is that uh, for all humans, and I do say especially for women, because we've been socialized differently. We've been socialized to be a little nicer and kinder and gentler and accept things kind of at face value. Don't rock the boat. Don't disrupt the circumstances of our society. But what I'm hearing when I'm listening to you is you said, the hell with that. Just no, no. And, I happen to know your Enneagram point, so I'll have to let you share that with people. But what I can say that I'm taking away from this and loving every minute of it is that as a woman, you were able to look at what many women would see not only as loss, but as a permanent setback in their lives, like a huge setback that might lead to a severe depression, and sadness is part of this process. When you go against the grain and you say, no, there's more to my life than this, and I'm going for it. It's not exactly an easy dive. It's not an easy self-inquiry. And I love the way you've described it. It was a messy middle, a really messy middle. Well, messy middles are okay when you are making the intentional choice to find your authentic self, to land in that space so that you can be all that you were intended to be. And that's the challenge. Most of us are living a half life or a quarter life and not understanding that we are entitled. We are actually designed and crafted and bespoke in a way where if we're willing to live our lives authentically, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. There's no dream that's too big. There's no goal that's too far out of reach. We can really do it. And bringing you on and listening to how you are not only have done it, but continue to do it is so encouraging. So, Nandi, when we think about women and the times that we're living in right now, uh, the challenges that we face, looking at, what we'll just say, what's happening in the United States, because we're global. We talk to women all around the globe. What would your message of encouragement be? What do you want every woman that is listening and the men that love us to hear, to know, what words do you have to share that would encourage any woman listening to get up out of her seat and say, hold up, I can do this too?
If you ever needed inspiration and you never had any, to say to yourself, you can be whoever you want to be. I want you to look at what just happened in this country. And tell yourself and recognize you could be the most unqualified person in the room, but feel so shut up in your bones about what you are passionate about, what you care about, what you've been put on this earth to do, that you will manifest it.
Yes.
And it may not look like it. And I get it. I'm not in a vacuum. I know where we live. I know what's been placed on us. I know what my ancestors came out of in order for me to be here today. I'm clear about that. And also, we can choose without evidence that it's possible for us. That is a choice. There are limitations, but the worst limitations are the ones that we place on ourselves. We have decided, based on what has been said about us historically and currently, that we are limited in who we can be. I'm clear about whose I am. I'm clear about what I came on earth for. And so that is actually my rallying cry for us as sisters and for the men who support us. Support us in actually getting in touch with who we have been made to be. Sisters, I'm asking you to look deeply, and you don't have to look far. There was a time in your life before all of the world came on you. You knew who you were. You may have been 5, you may have been 7, you may have been 10 years old before the world came in and told you something different. But you are clear, and if you get quiet, if you get still, you will hear her speak and you will hear her say. And now all you have to do is match up her dreams, her hopes, her aspirations with the adult version of yourself that's going to say, I got you. I got us. I will take care of us. I won't let anything happen to us. Right? I'm going to help shepherd us and guide us to a place where we are living the life of our dreams. We are in a place right now as a country that many of us thought could never be possible, especially after everything we came through. Great. If we know that things happen that we never expected to happen, that thing that you thought might never happen for you, not only is it possible, not only is it probable, it's set up to happen if you choose, because that's what it looks like life is like. If we actually give ourselves permission to look at the people that we admire, the people that we don't admire but are in positions of power, and everybody in between, life ends up being what we make it, what we choose, how we actually show up to meet its circumstances. And so if we know that, and if we believe that, and if we anchor in that, well, then watch what's possible on the other side.
Absolutely. You know, Nandi, every time I talk to you, it makes my heart just grow 10 times, because it is so encouraging to see a young woman who gets it, understands the reality of the power that you have and that we all have as women. We have the capacity and the actual, I would say, sacred calling of being able to sort of right wrongs, to get things on course, to gather together and create and make something better than it was and leave it better just for our having touched it, for having put our energy, our passion, our hearts into healing something and making it better. You know, our ancestors, the ancestors of every woman who breathes, went through something to get us where we are. in the present tense. But it's important for us to look at things that we might have that are falling away, because now we have to mobilize and come together. And that brings me to a point of passion and pain at the same time when I talk about a sisterhood, a true sisterhood of women who understand, respect, connect, collaborate, and come together, and who are aware of the divine feminine energy that we embody. And how do we do a better job of coming together? And I say a sisterhood, but remember, when we're talking about divine feminine energy, men have it as well. So the sisterhood of women and men who love us, non-binary, who embrace both of the energies within them, what do we need to be doing differently, in order to raise each other up, as opposed to pulling each other down or tearing each other apart? What are some of the thoughts that you have about that from your generation's perspective?
Yeah. So Dr. E, I have a course that I teach that I also have on my website as well. It's called The Self Sanctuary. And the premise of the Self Sanctuary was, when I was doing this work for myself, what I realized is that I didn't feel safe in community.
Mm,
I realized when I was willing to look deeper, right? And you talked about like there being like depression and sadness that comes around things falling away. I had all of that, but I was willing to go through it, right? And so this notion that that for many of us, we don't feel safe in community. Yes, that's true. But we don't realize, and what I didn't realize is that I wasn't a safe space for myself.
oh,
I was
powerful.
a space for myself, Dr. E. When I
So powerful.
when I listened to the way that I spoke to myself in the mirror, my self-talk after I would get off with a client and who, shared that they had a breakthrough. And I'm like, you could have done this differently. And all of the perfectionism that came out every single time I would try and take a step forward, it was trying to send me a few steps back. And so I recognized, oh, well, maybe if I talk to myself differently, maybe if I reflect on my experiences differently, maybe if I honor the best of who I am instead of everything that I can see that's missing. Hello, Enneagram 4, that's me. Always noticing what's missing. What if it was all good? What if it was all in divine order? How would I then be able to see other people differently? Because all we do is run around and project on each other most of the time.
Correct.
So if I'm at peace within myself, peace within, peace without. So I think one of the biggest things that we have to consider is, how have I been a friend to me? First of all, what's my definition of friendship? What's my definition of sisterhood? How have I been a friend and how have I been a sister to myself? How do I practice that in a way where my capacity for it grows? And how do I allow the overflow to support the sisters that are around me? So I start with myself, and then I go directly into my family, my mother, my sister, my children, my daughters, my nieces, cousins, and then into the greater world. Um, we will feel that peace internally, and that peace will translate to the way in which we are with each other. And I would also recommend that we start small.
Mhm.
Each of us has very defining moments in conversations, not that we just have with ourselves, but also with other sisters. And in that moment where you're getting ready to say something that's unkind, that is critical, that is not of God or source or universe or whatever it is that you believe in, stop and breathe. Give
Yeah,
yourself the gift of life that's inside of you. And then ask yourself, is that really what you want to say? Or is that what you're choosing to project?
that's beautiful, Nandi. That is absolutely beautiful. When When people say that words don't matter, that is one of the biggest lies that we've ever been told. Words do matter. And they matter particularly when they're coming out of your mouth, because you have the power with your words to either lift someone up and elevate them and encourage them, even if you don't like them. Now that's a concept right there. Why would I want to elevate and encourage someone that I don't like? You want to do that because in order to be your authentic self, which is goodness and kindness and a source for navigating this earth, this world, in a way that makes every path, every person that you come in contact with better for your having been there. And so in those moments when you're tempted to tear a sister down, and I use the word sister universally because we're all connected. But as women, this tearing each other down, there's a concept that I learned many, many years ago. It's called the power dead even rule. And with women, there's a tendency that when a woman rises up and she decides that she's going to do exactly what you're doing now, Nandi, other women who are observing this breaking out of the fold will actually discourage you rather than encourage you. That needs to stop now, today. To everyone who is listening, I'm sending that message. You may not like your mother-in-law, but say something kind to her and remember that if it was not for that woman, you would not have that man. It's just so important for us to rework our relationships with each other. And it does start with me. It starts with yourself. And when we talk about self-love, I'm not talking about going to the spa. I'm talking about getting in that prayer closet or getting on that meditation mat and getting right with yourself. And the first thing to do is to delete all those negative things that you are harboring about yourself. Embrace all of who you are, and the parts that you don't like quite so much, well, then lovingly begin to work with them. But your words coming out of your own mouth matter, and the words that people say to you matter as well, but in a different kind of way. When someone chooses to project on us, we can always recognize it as a projection, but we can also look for, is there any truth in that? Is there a little bit of a message in this for me? Have you had that experience, Nandi, where someone has projected on you, but you've been able to learn from it?
100%, because I've been in very long-term friendships ever since college. They're still around. And so we've done a lot of growing up with each other, and we've mirrored each other for a really long time. So even when she might be speaking to her or speaking about me, but about herself, she's also talking about me too. And I want to add here, because I think it's so important, and I know our time is coming to a close, Dr. E, is this moment of recognizing where we are in history, where we are in the United States, and what our ability to protest looks like. We really want to protest as women. We want to protest as sisters. Be in sisterhood. That's the
Right,
last thing that the patriarchy needs.
right.
Sisters rising up together, loving on each other, caring about each other. This whole the thing that you're talking about women tearing each other down, I don't even believe that's us. That's the patriarchy. That is internalized supremacy that we get to release, and it will not be a loss. It will only be a gain. And we get to really choose into that in order to set ourselves and each other free. So I'll be doing a lot of work and advocacy, but my primary protest is going to be, you will not see me tearing down my other sisters. I'm going to be lifting up my sisters, because we've got a lot of work to do. And it starts with knowing that we are a safe space for one another.
That is such a powerful message, and it's important for us to remember, as I said earlier, every single woman who is breathing air right now, someone suffered in order for us to be in safe space, in a space of power and connection, in a space of being able to receive and to utilize all the gifts that are here for us that we're intended to inherit. But right now, we can't afford to be coming up against each other. That is something that has to stop. We have to, and I love your language, we have to love on each other big time. I mean, like really big love, give it out there. And, when you take the time to go inward and you find space, room, peace, and you choose intentionally to navigate the world with loving kindness and compassion, everything changes. Everything changes. Your life changes, and you become the beneficiary of gifts that you didn't even know that you were in line to receive. Because kindness, love, compassion, these are powerful magnets. When you embody those attributes, those qualities, when you make those a priority, what returns to you is something that you're not even prepared for. It's so good you would turn down a hot fudge double deluxe sundae that was prepared with all the perfect ingredients, because it's so overwhelming to be the recipient of the love and the compassion and the light that we know we can give each other. But it starts with our willingness to give it to ourselves. You cannot give what you do not have.
Yes. And Dr. E, I just want to say to your listeners that I'm able to give that because I have received that. That's been modeled for me. And of course, my mother is an incredible influence, but I want to just take a moment. I know your listeners already know who you are, but I'm going to give you your flowers today, because Dr. E, you didn't know me from a can of paint years ago. And I'm a little one trying to grow up in my Enneagram practice and do incredible work. And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm asking around, and they're like, you need to talk to Dr. E. And I didn't just talk to Dr. E. I was adopted by Dr. E, mentored by Dr. E, guided, lauded on, applauded on, taken care of, incubated by you. You are incredible as is, just what you've created in your career. And you could stop there, Dr. E, but you never have. You've got daughters and nieces and children all around the globe because you cared enough not to just create, but to make a difference, make an impact, and most importantly, leave a legacy. And so you have your birth children, but then you also have us, those of us that you lit the path for 27 years ago when you created this business. You're the reason why we even know that this is possible. And so thank you for embodying sisterhood. Thank you for doing it before it was popular. Thank you for bringing it up and growing us up in that. Thank you for allowing that to even be a conversation today because of your choice, probably, and even though it was difficult to do so. It may not have been popular. It may not have been asked for. In fact, it may have been completely against the grain. And yet your choices over these last 3 decades, thank you for carving the path for us.
Well, thank you for that, Nandi. You're doing an Oprah. You're trying to make me cry, and I'm not going to do it. But I'll tell you that the great joy of my life is finding women like you, who I may have found as girls, and watching you grow up into badass, powerful women. And you know what? The thing that I know is that when my time here is done, I'm not worried. Y'all have got this. And I love you. I'm so proud of you. And darling girl, just keep doing what you're doing, because you are absolutely going against the grain and making yourself, your world, and everyone that you touch better for the process. I love you, Nandi.
I love you too, Dr. E. Thank you for everything.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Humanity Mosaic podcast with Dr. E. For more information, please visit deboraheggerton.com and be sure to check out theauthenticselfcommunity.com to continue your journey.